A few years ago, a candy challenge went viral on the internet. Now, in this challenge, parents sat down a bowl of candy in front of their young toddlers, and they instructed them not to eat the candy until they returned back into the room. Now, some of the toddlers, not able to resist that temptation, gave in quickly and shoved the candy into their mouths. Others were successful, and they waited until their parents arrived back into the room. Now, these videos are adorable. It's ironic, though, that we find it endearing to watch children struggle with self-control when many of us struggle with it as well. See, for those toddlers, the consequences were really minimal. But lack of self-control in the real world can often carry significant consequences. The truth is that an inability to practice self-control can lead to loss. The loss of our health, the loss of a career, the loss of relationships, of reputation, of long-term security, and even the loss of a family. The truth is that there's a guy named Peter the Apostle, and he struggled with self-control at times. In fact, Peter would often just blurt out things without even thinking. There was this one time when Jesus was sharing with his disciples God's plan to save the whole world. Now, in this plan, Jesus said, it would require Jesus being arrested, it would require that he endure much pain, and eventually he would have to be killed. But they were not to worry, Jesus told them, because in 3 days' time he would rise from the dead, completing the mission that Jesus had been sent to the earth for. I'll pay the price for sin once and for all, Jesus told his friends. And because I'm the Messiah, when I rise from the dead, I will then live forever. And so as Jesus is sharing this truth with his friends, the Bible tells us that Peter, not liking what he's hearing, decides to reprimand Jesus at that moment. So Peter blurts out and he says, "You're wrong, Jesus. This will not happen to you." Now, if only Peter had been able to practice some self-control in the moment, if only he had stopped to think, he may have caught his errors and corrected them before blurting them out. Because shockingly, only minutes earlier, Peter had declared, "Jesus, you are the Messiah, the one that God had promised to send to us to save the world." And now just a few minutes later, as he reprimands Jesus, it's like Peter is saying, "Jesus, even though you are the Messiah, I obviously know more than you." If only Peter had been able to practice some self-control, he may have recognized that his mouth was talking when his ears should have been listening. If only Peter had been able to practice some self-control, he may have realized that he was depending on his own limited human knowledge instead of the knowledge that God had just revealed to him, which was that the Messiah was standing right in front of him. So even if Peter didn't understand the plan fully, the Messiah must know a little bit more than Peter did in that moment. The truth is that Peter needed to be reminded to practice self-control. Now, if you've ever driven on the highway, you've likely noticed the guardrails that run down the side of the highway. These guardrails help to keep vehicles on the right side of the road and away from danger. In life, we need guardrails too. We need checks in place so that when we are tempted to drift off the path that we are on, the guardrail helps to keep us where we need to be. A few weeks ago, I found myself needing to stop for gas. Now, I hate stopping for gas because I find it so inconvenient, especially when you're running late, which I was. So there I was, and I pulled up to the station, I jumped out of my car, and I tapped my credit card, waiting for that beep. Then I grabbed the gas injector, and I tried to put it into my gas tank, but it wouldn't go in. Now, frustrated, I tried to forcefully shove it into the gas tank, but it physically just would not fit. It didn't make sense. I was about to jump back into my car and drive to another station when I recognized something. See, there was a second gas handle option in front of me, and the handle that I was holding in my hands, well, it was yellow. And then it dawned on me. I was holding the diesel handle. Now, I'm not sure if you are aware, but putting a diesel into a gas engine is a very bad idea. So thankfully, the gas company had put a safeguard in place, a guardrail, if you will. They made it impossible for a rush person like myself to unknowingly fill up with the wrong fuel by designing that diesel injector to be larger than the gas tank opening. This is exactly what the Bible means when it encourages us to set up guardrails for our lives. See, it is wise to put safeguards in place so that when we go to do something that will harm us, we're forced to stop and think. Guardrails protect us from unintentionally bringing damage to our lives. But what does a guardrail look like in 2022? Well, a wedding ring is a guardrail. It's something that you wear to remember the lifelong commitment that you have made to your partner. A Netflix passcode can be a guardrail. It reminds you that what you are about to watch may not benefit your life. Those annoying screen time reports that pop up on your phones, well, they're guardrails. They are a reminder of the time and value that you are putting into areas of your life. For followers of Jesus, practicing a Sabbath, taking one day to rest each week, is a guardrail because it serves as a reminder that we are not self-dependent people. Practicing a Sabbath reminds me that I can stop and rest because God is ultimately in control. The world doesn't depend on me. It depends on Him. I wonder, are there areas in your life where maybe you need to set up some guardrails? What about your emotions? Do they need some guardrails? To find out, you can ask yourself, am I careful with my heart? Do I trust it to only those who will treasure it? Do I prioritize my mental health? Do I make room for self-care? Maybe you'd admit you need to set up some guardrails over your thoughts. To find out, ask yourself, are my thoughts towards other people generous or are they more judgmental? Are my thoughts towards myself loving or borderline abusive? I wonder, do you need to set up some guardrails maybe for your body? To find out, ask yourself, do I treasure the body that God has given to me, or do I just take it for granted? Do I nourish it with things that will bring goodness and health, or am I only concerned about my body when it fails me? Some of us may need to set up some guardrails around our relationships. To find out, you can ask yourself, are the names of those that I love safe on my lips? And do I honor my partner, the one I've chosen to have a lifelong commitment, by disciplining my thoughts and my actions? Friends, guardrails are so critical because guardrails help us to build pauses and checks into our life, similar to that diesel injector. Guardrails are there to remind us to exercise self-control, and if we let them, guardrails will ensure that we are able to stay on the course that we have set out on. The reality is that life is a long journey, and there are no overnight fixes when it comes to self-control. Consistent steps in the same direction over a long period of time are necessary in order to arrive at any destination, and self-control is what helps us to take those steps. So friends, let's proactively choose to become people who are careful and intentional with our lives. Let's choose to set up some healthy guardrails in our lives in this next season, and then let's practice self-control so that we can grow into the people that God has called us to be.